Indian economy on the eve of independence. We will be looking at the features of Indian economy on the eve of independence. Now the meaning of eve here is the time just before the independence of India from the colonial yoke of the British Empire, who ruled India for almost 200 years. The Battle of Plassey of 1757 is one victory that won an empire for British. You can see here in the picture Sir Robert Clive, the governor of the English East India Company, right after the Battle of Plassey. So Battle of Plassey was fought in the year 1757 between the English East India Company and the Nawab of Bengal. And it was a decisive battle because the Nawab of Bengal, who was Siraj-ud-Dawla, although he had the support of French, he was defeated in the battle, and after that the conquest of English East India Company started expanding. The entire Indian subcontinent came under British rule. Now starting from this year 1757, the English East India Company ruled over many provinces and many princely states and kingdoms of India. But it was only the English East India Company and not the direct rule from the King or Queen of England. So that means British government had no interference in the political affairs of India till this time. But it was only after the year 1857, the first Indian War of Independence, or the Sepoy Mutiny as we very famously call it, that the British rule started in India. That means the government of Britain took over the entire political as well as economic affairs of the country from the English East India Company, and thus it became a part of the British Empire. In the year 1894, Victor Alexander Bruce, the viceroy of the then British India, he said, "India is the pivot of our empire. If the empire loses any other part of its dominion, we can survive. But if we lose India, the sun of our empire will have set." Now this is a very significant statement given by Victor Alexander Bruce, because it was said that the sun never sets in British Empire. Why is it said? Let's have a look. So when you look here in this picture, you will get an idea why the statement that sun never sets in the British Empire is said. Because in 1920, the size of the British Empire could be seen in a red color here. A very small kingdom, that was Britain, took a vast expanse all over the world, starting from Australia in the east, then many parts of Africa, a few parts in the South American continent also, and then the entire northern part of North American continent, including Canada. Most importantly, the entire Indian subcontinent was under the rule of Britain. So you can imagine the extent to which the British Empire set its colony. And one reason for this is the strong naval power. They are able to travel many parts of the world because they have a strong naval power. And since they have a great authority over the maritime and sea, they are able to run their political administration in many parts of the world. It was the era of colonialism. The British Empire set its colony in different parts of the world, and its colonies were actually the nations which are subjugated to them politically and economically. The relationship that a nation and its colony will have is such that the colonies were subject of the ruling country, and its economic policies were made by the nation who is in control of the colony. Thereby, during the colonial period, we could see that many nations were exploiting their colony, and similar case happened with India as well. Let us see how. We will look at some features of Indian economy before the advent of the British rule in India. India was a prosperous country. It was a prosperous economy. The nature of the economy was mostly agrarian, and when I say agrarian here, I mean India was mostly agricultural. The primary occupation of people in India was agriculture. Apart from that, we could also see that India was well known all over the world for its rich handicraft industries. Handicrafts were mostly of silk and cotton, metal works, and also precious stone. According to one British economist, Angus Madison, India's share of the world economy went from 24.4% in 1700 to just 4.2% in 1950. So that means before Britishers established its rule in India, India was doing very well. So far the international trade was concerned, India occupied almost 1/4 of the entire world trade. But during the British rule, and at a time when the Britishers just left India, the share of India in the world economy was reduced to just 4.2%, which is very meager compared to its past. An example of India's financing could be seen in the textile industry of Bengal. Muslin is a type of cotton textile which had its origin in Bengal, particularly places in and around Dhaka, now the capital city of Bangladesh in present day. Daccai Muslin had gained worldwide fame as an exquisite type of cotton textile, the finest variety of muslin, called as Malmal. Sometimes, foreign travelers also used to refer to it as Malmal Shahi or Malmal Khas, implying that it was worn by or fit for the royalty. So the kings and the nawabs used to wear Malmal, as it is one of the finest quality of the cotton fabric that was made in Bengal, and it was famous all over the world. Now the basic purpose of British rule in India was to use the Indian economy as a feeder economy for the development of the British economy. So what do we mean by feeder economy? Feeder economy are actually the economy of those nations whose natural resources, both physical resource as well as human resource, are going to be used by the country or the nation who is ruling them to be used as raw material for the production of goods. This is done for the self-interest of the ruling nation. They exploited India's natural as well as human resources, but for their own interests, for the glory of Britain. So this was the basic purpose of the British rule, and they were not interested in the development of the colony. Now after the revolt of 1857, we saw that the British Crown took over the control of the entire Indian subcontinent, and it continued for almost 90 years till the year 1947. On the 15th of August 1947, India was granted independence. And as you can see from this photograph, the person who is standing here is none other than our first Indian Prime Minister after the country got its independence, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. Just right after the independence, he gave a historic speech which is recorded in history and famous till today as the famous A Tryst with Destiny. This is an illustration of the Indian economy on the eve of independence, a visualized version of one of my students, Mr. Shoshan Ramung of class 12C, roll number 20. It is indeed a very beautiful work by Mr. Shoshan Ramung. I appreciate this, and I think that other students are also going to come out with such exemplary work. Well done, Shoshan Ramung. Now discussing further the feature of the Indian economy, There was low level of economic development under the colonial rule of Britain. The economic policies pursued by the British government were concerned with the protection and promotion of their own economic interests. The development of Indian economy was totally neglected. India was merely supplier of raw materials and consumer of finished products from Britain. India was used as a market for the finished goods which were produced in England by using the raw material which are procured from the subcontinent of India only. This brought about a fundamental change in the structure of Indian economy, which resulted in the underdevelopment of India. No sincere attempt was made by the British government to estimate India's national income as well as the per capita income. Although individual attempts were made by Dadabhai Nauroji, William Digby, Finlay Shiras, Professor V.K.R.V. Rao, and R.C. Desai. In fact, Dadabhai Nauroji prepared the first estimate of national income and per capita income in 1876 for the year 1867-68 to highlight the problems of poverty in India. India was facing the problems of poverty during the British rule, and it was showcased for the first time when Dadabhai Nauroji, the grand old man of India, came with his first publication in where he showed the estimation of the national as well as the per capita income in India. It was published in the year 1876 in his Poverty and British Rule in India. But all these estimates which are made by different persons during the British rule were all conflicting with each other. They had conflicting nature, and because of which no clear-cut picture of the actual per capita and national income could be derived at. But the first scientific attempt to estimate national as well as per capita income was made by Professor V.K.R.V. Rao. His estimates on national and per capita income were considered very significant, which revealed that country's growth of aggregate real output during the first half of the 20th century, that means from 1900 to 1950, was less than 2%, which is meager, and only 0.5% growth in the per capita output per year. So we know here the per capita income or per capita output is the total output or the income of the country divided by the total population. So that means each and every person in the country, how much income they will be getting, it was increasing at just the rate of 0.5%. So one can imagine this was a very poor state of affairs. It was important that we look at some highlights of the condition of the economy that prevailed during the British rule before discussing the features. And while discussing the features of the Indian economy, we will consider the performances of different sectors in the economy. First, we have the agriculture, then the industrial sector, then the demographic condition of the nation will be discussed, and then we have the foreign trade that the British India had during that time, and we will come to the infrastructure, the construction of road, railways, etc. during the British rule, the occupational structure, which is what is the nature of work that the majority or certain percentage of the population and the workforce were carrying out during the British rule and on the eve of independence.